Prusa XLs that are having an odd issue, Jaws Tech doing absolutely atrocious things to 3D printers, Nero needing to be in every episode of PrintFixFriday for a month, and probably one of the most ridiculous resin fails that I have ever seen. It makes my heart hurt. All this and more, PrintFixFriday, episode 116. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here and you are struggling with 3D printing, we can help you out. But hey, if you don't mind leaving a like, getting subscribed, if you think that we will hopefully earn it in this video. If you do want to reach out to us directly to get some assistance, you can do so by sliding into those DMs on any of the social medias, although I personally monitor Twitter, or you can email us directly, youtube@3dmusketeers.com. Try to make it nice and simple for you guys to help you getting back to printing with purpose. We have some interesting fails for you this week, so without further ado, let's just jump right into it and get these things fixed. Because, some of them hurt my soul. Neptune 3 Pro 70-degree bed temp, any way to help reduce warping on larger prints. That's a lot of warp. We have some very, very obvious warping here. Let's see if we got a better photo. Yeah, we do. That's way too much warping. This is an interesting one. PLA at 70 is technically above its glass transition temperature of about 60 to 65 C. Any hotter than that, the material is going to be more liquidy and have less of a chance of it actually sticking to the build plate. But you might think, Grant, if it's more liquidy, wouldn't it just fall into those nooks and crannies? I wish it did. It doesn't. It actually has a tendency to rapidly cool down when you hit layer 2, and then it starts to warp up. But we do find that this can be an issue if you don't have proper cooling as well. See, the Neptune 3 Pro is not a clipper machine, and we don't know if this one is clipperized. It is possible to run these machines relatively fast, but 70, she's a little warm. Normally we do 60 to 65 C, and that seems to run just fine for our use case. They're going to a raft, which is not the right move to do. A raft is old school. We used to use rafts back in the day when we were printing ABS parts without any sort of heated bed, because heated beds weren't a thing back in the day. And if they weren't easy to do, because you couldn't just go buy one on Amazon. It wasn't a thing. You had to make them. This method of a raft was used to deal with the fact that ABS was going to warp. So let the raft eat the warping and then just print a beautiful part on top of it. But I have a feeling this might not be PLA. And from what I can see, we don't actually have what the material is. If it is like an ABS or an ASA, yeah, it's gonna warp unless you enclose it. And pretty much trying to run a big part like that on a bed slinger in a material that isn't PLA is going to result in problems. If it is ABS, 70C, way too cold. If it's PETG, 70C is on the lower end of what we would run. We prefer to run 85 to 90C because PETG does stick quite a bit better when you get closer to its glass transition temperature of right around 80 to 90C, depending on the material. But let's step back and assume this actually is PLA. We also want to check to make sure the bed is clean. And with these textured build plates, you also need to be a little bit closer than you think as well. That perfect first layer is not as easy to obtain on a textured build plate because you do need to be a little bit closer than you would with a smooth plate. So if you have a textured plate and you're not getting a perfect glass layer, don't worry about it. It's kind of normal. And as long as your prints stick, I wouldn't worry too much, as long as you don't have a massive elephant's foot either. So make sure that bed is clean, because a dirty bed, no matter what temperature you're running, is not going to help you out at all. Other thing to check for is to make sure that you don't have a draft in the room. Yes, even with PLA. I know we've said more cooling, more better, but there are cases where if you don't have great bed adhesion, more cooling causes more warping, even with PLA. When we're dealing with 70C, that material is pretty warm already, and so it doesn't want to be warm anymore. So when you do cool it, If you do cool it rapidly, it might have a tendency to warp. The other thing is here, if you are dealing with warping like this, don't let the printer run this far. If you are dealing with printer problems, it is best to watch the machine. I know you can't be there the entire time to make sure that the machine works every single freaking time, because that is a pain in the butt. It doesn't work, and quite frankly, it's not worth anybody's time. But if you can't see why the issue is occurring or when the issue is occurring, we have to take a lot of guesses and make a lot of assumptions, and we all know what happens when you assume something. Next up, a fail from my brother John, who has an SV06 Plus, who had a blob of doom. John, however, forgot to take the sock off to clean under the sock when he had the blob of doom. Thankfully, this is a pretty easy thing to fix. Take the sock off, heat the printer to as hot as you can reasonably push it on the SV06 Plus. Since it is an all-metal hot end, he went to 290C and just let it sit there. Most of the PLA globbed off, and then you can use something like a brass brush or a brush of sorts to go ahead and clean off the excess stuff from that hot end before you reinstall, hopefully, a new sock. Thankfully, when the plastic dries on the silicone sock itself, it should just kind of peel right off, but it's why we recommend to have spare parts when and where you can. We can see that he ended up getting some of it off, but the rest of it will probably have to be scrubbed off. Do be careful if you're using a brass brush on a hot end that has recently had a blob of doom. You want to make sure you don't short out any wires, specifically the heater wires, because that can absolutely cook your motherboard. It is a great thing to remember. And blobs of doom are just, unfortunately, kind of the facts of life these days on some machines, especially when you don't pay attention to them all the time. If you do get a blob of doom, just make sure you clean on the outside of the silicone sock and go ahead and pull the sock off to check underneath it as well. I've done it before, and I'm sure I'll do it again, and I'm sure John will do it again too. It's just one of those things that when you're not thinking and you're just kind of working, it can get away from you very, very quickly. It's easy to get caught up in these smaller mistakes that end up being more of a problem, because this you won't immediately notice, but you will notice it when it starts to drip a little bit into the next couple of prints that you make, and then you think your hot end is loose for some reason until you pull off the sock and realize it's just extra filament. Random bad line in the lower end of the print. PLA Ender 3v2 220C 60 millimeters per second, not 60 meters per second. That's probably a typo. 100% infill. We're going to talk about that. Never had this issue with any of my prints with the same materials and settings. Almost looks like a stepper got happy. I'm assuming sad. All belts and drive rollers seem proper. Any ideas? P.S. I work on cars for a living, and that's as clean as my hands will get today. Thanks in advance. Let's see what we got here. Got a bunch of parts. Looks like some under extrusion issues. Yeah, under extrusion issues. I get that you work on cars, but one of those like orange hand cleaners, brother, your significant other will thank you. We have under extrusion. So let's talk about the 100% infill first. It's a waste of time. If you want extra strength, do tons of perimeters. Ultimately, perimeters are where you get your strength from, and Stefan of CNC Kitchen has proved this. And while, yes, infill does have some regards to strength, homogeneous lines for a perimeter are way stronger than just back and forth lines for infill. For the issues with under extrusion, we can see some right over there. You want to look at and make sure you don't have a clog. It looks like if you did have a clog, the printer pushed through it, so that's great. The other thing to check for is that at 220, that is a little hot for PLA. And in fact, you can see that it's a little hot. We've got some stringing going on here as well. You might want to look at dropping those temps to 215 or even 220. A temp tower would be a great thing to print, and we talked about it last week on PrintFixFriday, which we will card to so you guys can take a look. I don't mind when these issues happen. This is kind of part and parcel of the deal. And if your hands are this dirty all the time, you might have and are certainly more susceptible to dirt, grime, grit, and other materials getting into the filament as you touch it. If you do work in a relatively greasy or dirty environment, put on some gloves. It's not that difficult to just grab a couple of nitrile gloves. I wanted to grab one and I grabbed a bunch. Go to Harbor Freight or, you know, your version of Harbor Freight, wherever you live. Buy some cheap nitrile gloves and use those, because you don't want that dirt getting into your filament, because 0.4 millimeters is way smaller than you think. It doesn't take much to clog a nozzle. Now, thankfully, it looks like it did push past it. So honestly, I would just look at rerunning this print and seeing if you have the issue again. If you have the issue again, and it's at the same place, we're going to look to more of a heat issue. Maybe you've got a heat creep problem or something like that. Now, this is Lychee Slicer. And for those that don't know, Lychee Slicer actually can do FDM now as well. So if you're running a filament printer and you love Lychee Slicer for your resin work, you could go ahead and use it for your filament work as well. Recently, actually, I've been messing around with Voxel Dance Tango. I can't show you the parts we're working on, but it is something that I've been working in as well, mainly because it's a little bit better optimized for its auto supporting. It doesn't just eat all of my RAM. But boy, howdy, its UI is really difficult to deal with. And while Voxel Dance is not free, they don't have a free option. They do have a free trial that you can go ahead and do if you're looking to give it a shot. They've got this enterprise grade pricing structure where it's pay per export, which I'm not a huge fan of, especially not with the way that their UI and UX is done. So Voxel Dance, if you see this video, we should talk, because there's definitely some UI and UX improvements that you guys can do before I think that your price point actually makes sense for a business, business here, using it for business purposes, would be willing to pay for it. So right now I'm kind of hesitant to want to pay for it because of a lot of the hoops I have to jump through. But anyways, yes, Lychee Slicer obviously has options for both. So if you like their UI and UX and you like utilizing it for resin, you can now use it for your filament-based printers as well. No more 100% infill. Do more perimeters. Stop with the damn infill. From the Prusa XL Hobbyist Facebook group, very odd bed leveling problem with the tool head number 2. Working with Prusa support on this, but for whatever reason, tool head 2 fails the bed leveling process at this point. All other tool heads work fine. This only happens if the tool head is the first or only tool head used. Let's take a look. Oh God. Is it sliding? Oh, there it goes. Okay. So what's occurring here is that as the XL is moving, and something is rattling in that XL, it's way louder than it should be. And I think it might be dragging the nozzle across the build plates. Be careful about that too. But as it got to that probing point, it was not successfully completing that probing point. And because the machine has crash detection, it said, nope, not gonna work here, boss, and failed the print. We've got some people here that are looking at it. Maybe a dumb question, but is your nozzle secured to the screw? And that's a good thing to check. The Nextruder nozzles are only held in with a couple of screws, and you wanna make sure that they are fully seated. And if they're not fully seated, you're gonna run into some problems. But it is Ben Cox, who is actually one of our Patreon members, which is super cool. Thanks, Ben, who figured it out. Some XLs have a weird issue. We don't know what causes it or why, but I don't know if it's in the assembly side of it or if it's only on the assembled printers or what, but it doesn't seem to be consistent. But what is happening is that the build plate can't get high enough, or it's going too high. In this case, the build plate is not able to properly self-level from what we can tell, and you actually need to print a different bearing housing so that the build plate doesn't just slam into it. What's happening is that the build plate's not really able to hit the nozzle properly, and it's running into its Z-axis limit. If you take this new print, which is available on printables, and we'll link to it in the description down below, this will give you 1 or 2 millimeters of extra clearance for that bed to come up and be able to complete the homing. While that does fix the inherent problem, I want us to figure out why these issues occur in the first place. It's not consistent across machines, so I don't know if it's a manufacturing issue or something like that. But hey, this is technically past Grant, because present Grant has already been to the Prusa factory, which is super cool, and I'm really excited to be going there. I'm definitely going to be asking about this because it's not the first time that we've seen this issue, and I think it's a valid thing for us to be talking about and try to resolve, right? If it's just a printed part and that's all you have to do, great. And in fact, Prusa can adopt this printed part into their assembly system and into their printed part systems. Now, of course, XLs that have already been printed and boxed and ready for shipping, those you just maybe send a little bit of extra filament and have the person print it. That's the value of a machine that's fully open source. If you do find a problem, it doesn't require retooling all these different machines. It requires just sending out a service bulletin and letting people decide if they want to do it. My XL does not have this problem. So even though we did print the parts, they're behind me somewhere. It's kind of chaos here right now. But we did print them just in case. We did not need them. But it is something that we've seen enough times that we're like, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. What do you guys think? Do you have an XL? Does it have this issue where some of the tools fail if you're running just one particular tool? So give it a shot with tool 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you do have a 5 tool head, which we do. There will be more XL content coming. Technically, I'm in the UK right now, so I haven't had a ton of time with the XL just yet. However, I'm expecting to get a lot of seat time when we get back from Smurf, where I'm not going to have a lot of hair left. So if you do want to see that, make sure you guys tune into the live stream tomorrow, December 2nd, 2023, where we are going to be cutting my hair, donating it to the Little Princess Trust, and then whatever is left is going to be auctioned off to the highest bidder with every penny going to the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation. I'm really excited for this because it's a way for us to be able to give back to a great charity that helps makers like you, like me, well, maybe like you, but definitely like me, those neurodiverse makers out there. And while I would not need the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation right now, early on Grant might have benefited from a charity like that, where he could not only benefit from it, but give back to it later on. And hey, I can give back a little bit. So if you are interested in donating, you don't have to be the big roller. Every penny counts. And hey, if every single one of our subscribers just kicked $1 to this fundraiser, we would be raising almost 38,000 US dollars, which is quite a bit and goes a long way to helping makers. So if you can spare a couple of bucks, I would rather you guys, for at least right now, take your money, give it to the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation, and then, hey, maybe next month or maybe later in the month, if you want to support what we do here on the channel, that would be great. Because, you know, I'd rather see the money go to helping makers right now so that we can build a better community of more awesome makers moving forward. But let me know what you guys think about the XL issue with this. I'm curious to know how far this issue goes, if it is potentially something that is just related to the assembly, or if it is something that is actually mechanical that is going on with the machine itself. Love to know your thoughts. Next up, a fun one, because Jaws Tech, they're a service provider, so they're very similar to what we do here at 3D Musketeers. However, they focus more on powder-based machines. They have a thing where they make Enders wince all around the world every 10,000 followers they get on Instagram. So let's take a look at the first one.
We hit 10,000 followers!
Yeet! First off, great distance. All right. That's some great distance right there. It's a great throw. I'm going to subtract a couple of points for not having a fall arrest harness on, because honestly, when you're at the top of a roof like that, you should at least make sure that you're not going to potentially hurt yourself. But, you know, whatever. I get it. It's for the video. You got to do it for the gram. That poor Ender.
10,000 followers we continue to get, we're going to destroy another 3D printer.
You can see the screen's cracked. The bed is completely pulled off. The power supply is ripped off. The entire Z-axis is all cattywampus. It's an Ender, right? They're not worth a ton of money. I would prefer that they take these parts, figure out which ones are actually shot, get rid of those, but then just donate the pieces to a local makerspace that might be able to turn it into something else. But apparently, just 6 weeks after their first death of an Ender 3, Jaws Tech decided that they did have to one-up themselves. I know you got a bigger machine to crush it, which is great. But the way to fix this problem, though, is just level the bed. It'll be okay. But yeah, heavy machinery versus 3D printer. It put up a fight in the beginning, but we all kind of saw how this David versus Goliath was actually going to play out here. I'll give credit where it's due, Jaws Tech. You're doing a good job on the social medias there. Keep it up. Next up, a fail that makes me hurt. As someone that has just bought and received their second Elegoo Jupiter, and it's currently printing on the shelf above me. This is an Elegoo Jupiter with a screen that has left the building, and it is for one of the most ridiculous reasons that I've ever heard of. The freaking Z end stop failed. The machine was fine. They went to home it before the next print, and it just kept going. This screen is like $180 when you can actually buy them. This hurts my soul. As of filming this video, and I'm filming it on the 25th of November, the printer's currently on sale for $800. And for a screen to cost like what, 1/5 of the printer, that hurts. Now, I firmly believe Elegoo should take care of this and replace it for no cost, because this is not the user's fault. Assuming the user didn't do anything to change it. If they put on, let's say, a magnetic flex plate and didn't add a spacer so that their Z end stop stops the bed earlier, you know, hey, that would be on them, not on Elegoo. But if their actual switch failed, that is a manufacturer issue, and the business side of me is like, just replace the whole damn printer. It's not worth the amount of hours that it's going to take to replace that freaking screen. That just, it hurts my soul. And it looks totally fake. The crack looks totally fake, but it is real. And this is from the Table Flip Foundry Discord. So F's in the chat, or in the comments, if you will. And last but not least, Nero, I think, just likes showing off the fact that he has a Cocoa Press. He's got some warping here on his chocolate, because apparently Nero doesn't believe that thermodynamics apply to chocolate. When you don't have great build plate adhesion, when you're trying to print on silicone, and you are dealing with something that has to be extruded at such a very, very specific amount of heat, or it is going to be too hot or too cold, your chances of actually having a part warp off the build plate is higher than you think. It's a tasty failure. And don't worry about it. You're just printing like a test cube or something. But yeah, I get it. This can be frustrating because the chocolate cores, the cocoa cores, if you will, are only 60 grams. And the cores can be a little bit expensive. So buy them in bulk. Because, of course, you know, you could always eat the fails. But 60 grams goes by a lot faster than you think. It's only a few benchies before you actually run out of this cocoa core. So I can get that there might be some frustrating elements involved in this process. And I am so looking forward to getting my cocoa press. I just need to, I've spent a lot of money this year, and I think I need to wait until the new year. Seeing cocoa press builds like this one by my buddy Amos. This is all done on his Prusa XL-5 tool head. And he put 0.4mm nozzles on it to get this back and forth color. That is freaking beautiful. I absolutely love this. And I think I gotta do something similar where, you know, you do a multifaceted thing. I might do white and black now and make it look like a cow, because that's kind of hilarious to me. But this is like the quality that you can get out of a Prusa XL. That is really, really good. Nice job there, Amos. I really want to start printing in chocolate. I'm a little worried that my ambient temperature is too hot, but I guess we will cross that bridge when that occurs. Let me know what you guys think we should do for the colors on our cocoa press that we'll hopefully be getting sometime in maybe January of 2024. Because, I don't know, maybe we'll put it up to a vote or something. The thing I won't put up to a vote is making sure to thank all of our channel supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier. Now, remember, if you do want to support the efforts that we do here, you can click those links down below. However, just for this video, go support the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation, because I'm about to shave my head for this. And, Come on, that's worth at least $1. You guys are gonna get to see me with crazy messed up hair. Anyways, thank you to all those super fans that make this kind of thing possible. And at the $10 tier and higher, you get to come hang out with us in our private Discord server, get to see all the behind the scenes stuff that we don't talk about here on the channel itself. That is all I have for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Don't forget to leave a like and get subscribed. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.